Okay.
Wajani wina hamte e hanicha wida haipi. Hijang kishina hini kariki wina. Hochang rajara nanajok winga. Maichere rajara Jean Stacy. This morning I bring greetings from the Ho-Chunk Nation. I am from the Deer clan. Bring greetings from my Stacy relatives, my Black Deer relatives, and my Bad Soldier relatives, my Blow Snake relatives. And I want to greet each one of you that are going to be viewing this video on this day, October 5th. And paying special honor to my birth mother, Maureen Faye Stacy. Today is her heavenly 87th birthday. So generally when an elder is asked to do storytelling or a presentation of any kind, the one asking generally presents the elder with tobacco. And I brought that tobacco today for Amber, and that she could present it to me.
Just take a little pinch.
I'm pinching some tobacco here, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
So it is my honor and my pleasure to accept this Dani, Ho-Chunk Rajara Dani from the Thunder Clan. As I said earlier, I'm Deer Clan, so it's quite an honor, and I pour it and accept it in the four directions, thinking about all my relatives that are in the four directions. And then a special dedication today to our families that are in mourn, and all our relatives that have gone on from this pandemic, the COVID-19, and now the new Delta variant. So it's my honor and pleasure to be here. I'm 67 years old. I have had COVID-19, and so I am in total gratitude that I'm here today to speak with you, and that I'm pretty healthy today. I am the great-granddaughter of Stella Stacy, aka Mountain Wolf Woman. And this is her book. And there's really nothing special about the book or special about her, except that a PhD student wanted to tell the story of a Ho-Chunk woman. And so my grandmother had an uncle, and he adopted this PhD student. She's now gone on and get a Nancy Lurie. And but this book here, it has a lot of stories in it, and I would be honored if the students pick this little story that I'm going to tell. And my Indian name, Nanazah, what means bends the bow, and I was named after her mother. So that would be my great-great-great-grandmother. So I'm honored to carry that name on. This one here, we're going to talk about Mountain Wolf Woman, and many of our elder women and our chokas and gagas, our grandpas and grandmas, had many stories to tell. And they're generally told in the winter time when the fire is going and it's too cold out to play. So it's just kind of natural evolution of our four seasons that our stories are told in the winter time. But I'm gifting you this story today in the season of autumn. And this is a story, it's called The Gift of a Name. Mountain Wolf Woman's early childhood years, they were not recorded in photographs or videos, as are some of the many children today. But much was stored in her memories and in the memories of her family. Gift of a name. Back in the 1800s, most people were born at home rather than in hospitals. From her family, Mountain Wolf Woman, she knew that she was born at her grandfather's house at a place that's today called East Fork River. It was early spring when she took her first breath. The exact date, time is unknown. And her family was making maple sugar. This is keeping in mind the 1880s. There was many relocations of our Ho-Chang-La or Winnebago, or what we call now, since 1993, the Ho-Chunk Nation. But this is where they would travel to at certain times of the year, depending on hunting, what was available, and the times of season. So this is the season of making maple sugar. For many Indian people in Wisconsin, making maple sugar was part of their yearly round of activities. It was something they did every spring. Early in the season, when there was still snow, people set up camps out in the woods in groves of maple trees. Back in those days, they built chapotacas, which is back then made out of bark, and then later on out of hides. Could be deer hides, elk hides. They made cuts in the trees with axes and then put a piece of wood into the cut to guide the oozing sap into the bucket. People spent many hours and days collecting buckets of sap. Then they poured the sap into large kettles. They boiled the sap in these large kettles for many, many hours until it began to granulate. The buckets of these trees are collecting sap that will soon become maple sugar. Sugaring was an important seasonal activity for many of the Wisconsin indigenous people, but our people, the Ho-Chunk-La, they stayed in their camps together. They didn't mingle with the Iowans or the Menominees or the Oneidas. They were in their own Ho-Chunk-La camps. Sugaring took a lot of hard work, but people look forward to working with family and friends. Sugaring was also a time of celebration because everyone knew the cold days and the nights of winter were almost over. Mountain Wolf Woman's first memory was of a spring day sometime after her first birthday. She was with her mother, Ben's the Bow, and her older sister, White Thunder. Mother and daughters had come to the creek that they needed to cross, and there was no bridge. Her mother had been carrying Mountain Wolf Woman on her back in a cradle board. When babies are in cradle boards, they face backwards and can't see where they are going. Mountain Wolf Woman started squirming. She says, "I was restless," as she remembers. And this, remember, she's telling her story to Nancy Lurie. Ben's the Bow brings her off the board and carries her in a shawl on her back. From the shawl, Mountain Wolf Woman looked over her mother's shoulder and saw what was happening. "I saw the water swirling swiftly." She remembers seeing White Thunder carrying the empty cradle board across the creek while she held her skirt up to keep it from getting wet. When she was older, Mountain Wolf Woman told her mother about this memory and asked her if it had really happened. Ben's the Bow was amazed that she had such an early memory. It was considered a sign of great intelligence. When Mountain Wolf Woman shared this story with her niece, Nancy Lurie, she did not want to sound as though she was bragging. Mountain Wolf Woman added that her mother suggested that she probably remembered this early moment because she was so frightened by the swift running water. Think back. What is your first memory? what was something scary or some other strong feeling that you may have had. And then a word about the cradle board. All Ho-Chunk women kept their babies on cradle boards in the olden days. The baby would be securely tied to the board with a footrest at one end and a hoop at the other end. The hoop was over the baby's head. It protected the child if the board should fall. The cradle board was an easy way to carry babies. The boards could also be stood upright on the ground so the babies could watch what their family was doing, primarily hunting or gardening or tending their animals. Mothers often hung beads or other bright objects on the hoop to entertain the baby. The cradle board was also made it easier for mothers to do their tasks. While the babies were kept snug and warm on the cradle boards, their mothers' hands were free to work. My grandmother was known for her basketry, and so when her babies were little, she had cradle boards on her body, on her back, while she stripped the bark and created her baskets and went to town and sold the baskets. So this is one of the stories I wanted to share. And I wanted to also mention that I'm not from the Buffalo clan. Buffalo clan are storytellers. So I got permission from my Degas and my uncles and my Chokas, my grandpas, to come here and speak with you today. This here one is a story. It's called the Ho-Chunk Courting Flute, and it was done with a group of students at which is no longer here, but at one of our Ho-Chunk schools. It was a charter school similar to yours. And I wanted to share this because I had had a conversation with Bill, who is the flute maker, and he was honored that I would take the time to share this with you today. And the beauty about this is it's written in Spanish, so if you have any Spanish students, Spanish-speaking students, and it's also in Ho-Chunk, in our Ho-Chunk language. And it has beautiful stories, and it's a beautiful story and beautiful pictures created by the students, and also a glossary, and I wanted to give this to your school. Preserving the storytelling tradition. Storytellers have always been greatly honored by our people, for they have carried with them the legends, myths, and the history of the Ho-Chunk. And this is a story that was shared and passed on to Bill. I'm going to go ahead and start. And it has adorable, cute little stories and drawings in it. And I would envision that if this is chosen by your school, maybe while it's being told, that the students could actually draw pictures also in addition to their attempt at a play. Some time ago there was a Ho-Chunk village, and this village was named Dejo, which the meaning of that is 4 lakes. And it has been there thousands upon thousands of years. Dejo is close to Madison, Wisconsin. In this large village there was a boy, and his name was Kunuga. Kunuga is a name for the firstborn son of any family, as I am a Hinu. I'm the Hinuga. I'm the oldest daughter. In my family there was a Hinu, a Wiha, and a Siga. The firstborn, secondborn, thirdborn, and we had no Kunus in my family. Kunuga grew up in this village, and he was very well liked by all the people in the village. His parents, his elders, and everyone in that village respected him. Whenever there was a gathering, he was always one of the first to ask, "Can I help?" And that is a tradition in our deer clan. We are the helpers in our clan. So we are always the first to ask, can we help? And this is one of the reasons that I picked this story. As Kunuga grew up, he started noticing a very beautiful girl, the chieftain's daughter. Every time Kunuga looked at her, he had to look away quickly because he would lose his breath at her beauty. When they crossed paths in the village, he would not talk to her because he would become tongue-tied. He would try to talk to her, but only jumbled words would come out. And so Kunuga realized he had to find a way to talk to this beautiful girl. And these are his Chapotokes in his village. One day, as Kunuga was trying to come up with a way to talk to this beautiful girl, he saw an elder tending to a fire. He walked up to the elder and asked, Choka, which means grandpa, I wonder if I can have a moment of your time to talk to you about something that is happening. Choka, the grandfather said, Kunu, come sit down. Minangare, sit down here. We understand what is happening. We see what is going on throughout the village. We notice that you have a hard time talking to this beautiful girl. Kunuga responded, yes, every time I talk to her, my tongue gets thick and big and I can't talk. I get sweaty and I just want to walk away. Well, Choka answered him, Kunuga, here is what you will do. Tomorrow morning, before the village awakes, before you eat anything in the morning, pick up your spear pouch, your fire starter kit, and your water bag. Go to the north and you will cross the tracks of Chaske-Chere, which means the white deer, the great white deer. Kunuga asked, well, what am I supposed to do when I find Chaske-Chere, the great white deer? Whatever you receive from the great white deer, bring it back and it will assist you in winning over your heart's desire. Choka answered as he went back to tending his fire. Later that night, Kunuga went to bed, but he couldn't sleep very well because he was so excited. He was finally going to find something that would give him the ability to talk to his heart's desire. As he got up the next morning, even before the first fires were burning, he grabbed his spear bag, his fire pouch, and his water bag, and off he headed to the north, as instructed. As he walked and as the sun started to rise, he crossed the track of a deer, the biggest tracks he had ever seen. Kunuga said to himself, this must be Chaske-Chere. He followed the tracks all day long until dark. As the sun set, he realized that he was getting closer to seeing the great white deer, Chaske-Chere. He knew he was close because he could see the mud tracks from between the deer's toes, they were still soft. As night fell, Kunuga was forced to stop and build a small fire. He sat down by the fire and sprinkled some tobacco, as we did earlier, on the flames, and he said in prayer, Ma'ona, Creator, I come to you in a word of prayer. I'm asking you for guidance and help me find Chaske-Chere, the great white deer. Kunuga fell fast asleep and he had a dream that night of a little woodpecker. He said, Kunu, you are doing a good thing, the woodpecker said. If you continue on, Chaske has something for you. And so Kunuga woke up the next morning very excited to find Chaske-Chere, and he brought the embers back to life with his fire. He offered some tobacco and thanked Ma'ona for his dream. He continued to follow the tracks all throughout that day. As the sun started to set, he arrived at a village, at a valley, the valley that still belongs to the Ho-Changara people today. In that village, in the saddle between the two hills, was a silhouette of the great deer. Although it looked like a big black deer, because the sun shone behind it, Kunuga knew that this must be Chaske-Chere, the great white deer. He was so tired. He had not eaten, he had not drinking for 2 days, and he just didn't know what to do, so he offered once again a prayer, And he knew that as he pulled out his spear and stretched it back and aimed, getting ready to aim for Chaske, suddenly the grandmother Earth, our Mother Earth, did exactly what she had been doing for thousands of years. At dusk, she took a final deep breath. Out in the wilderness throughout the day, the winds blow back and forth. But just before dark, you'll notice that everything has settled down and the wind will quit. As Grandmother Earth took her deep breath, Kunaga heard a low, calming sound of a flute echoing through the valley. When Kunaga heard that sound, his spear still in his hand, he looked to where the sound came from and thought to himself, "What is that? I've never heard that sound before in my entire life." As Kunaga looked back to where his spear was pointing, he saw that Chaske had disappeared over the side of the hill, and Mother Earth helped that. Otherwise, he would have drawn his spear and perhaps gotten the big white deer, the great white deer. As day turned to night, Kunaga sadly returned to the base of the hill and made himself another fire. He placed more tobacco on the fire, and he once again thanked Maona. He said, "Creator God, I thank you and for bringing him to that spot." As he fell asleep, as he went hamu for the night, the same little woodpecker came back to him in his dream and said, "Kunu, you have come to a place where Chaske Khere has brought you. Go back to that same place tomorrow and you will receive exactly what you came for." The next morning, Kunaga woke up at daylight and he did what all the young men do. He put some more tobacco on the fire and he thanked those who had placed him there. And as Kunaga returned to the same valley, Grandmother Earth once again did the same thing she had done for thousands of years. She took her first breath of the day. Kunaga once again heard the calming sounds he had heard the night before echoing through the valley. After hearing the sound for a second time, Kunaga ran up to the top of the hill where the deer had stood, and he walked across the ridge where the sound was coming from, and there, on the great cedar tree, stood a little woodpecker. It was the same woodpecker that had come to him twice in his dream. And I'm going to gift your professor, your teacher, your leader, some cedar that has been growing in our yard, and we dry it, we hang it to dry, and we're offering it as a gift, and present that right now.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
The cedar is one of our sacred elements that we cherish and that we grow along with our dani, our tobacco. And I'll continue on. So he poured his cedar onto the fire, and he wondered there must be something of importance with that woodpecker. There must be what Chaske Khera wanted me to take back. So he climbed up that great cedar tree and he broke off the branch that the woodpecker was pecking on. And as he climbed down the tree, he looked at the limb and said, "This must be what made the sound that I heard." So for generations now, we have that gift of the cedar that Maona, the Creator, grew on our Mother Earth, and we cherish it today, and we believe that it has, when you burn it, it has a healing, a soothing element. So I'm honored to give that to you today. Once on the ground, Kunaga started blowing on the branch and lightly shaking it, trying to get the branch to make the sound that he had heard, but he couldn't get that sound out. He even lifted it above his head and swirled it around and around, but he heard nothing. Kunaga knew he needed to take that branch back to his village, so he placed it next to his spear, in his spear pouch. And that's a whole other story in itself, what we could tell you the story of continuing on that story and taking it back to the village, and it would take 4 days in Ho-Chunk. Kunaga started his long journey back to his village, but after a short time he could not walk anymore. He was so very tired, and he had not eaten anything on his journey. Today we call that a fast, and we fast for 4 days. So he built himself a small fire, and before he was able to say a prayer, he fell fast asleep. And in his dream, who comes? The woodpecker. He comes back to him and he says, Kunu, you did a great thing. You found what Chaske Hira was trying to show you. We will teach you how to make and how to play a cording flute so you can win over your heart's desire. So that cedar tree is going to be offering many, many gifts. Over the next 2 days, the woodpecker taught Kunaga how to make a cording flute using his own arm, hand, and fingers as measurements. Since each cording flute is made according to each player's body size, each cording flute has its own unique sound, and woodpecker also taught Kunaga how to play the flute. I love this one. So he has the flute, and the melody is coming out. When Kunaga returned to his village of Dejob, which is now Madison, he sat down on top of the hill that overlooked the entire village. He crossed his legs and began to play his cording flute. As he played, the whole village stopped to listen because they had never heard a sound that beautiful before. All the children stopped running about, all the women in the garden stopped working, and all the men sitting around their fires looked up toward the sound. As everyone stopped to listen to Kunaga play, the chieftain's daughter, his heart's desire, stepped out of her chapotake, that would be her dwelling, looked up, and at that moment she heard the song he was playing, and she knew that that song was specifically for her. This is the flute that Kunaga makes. And this is the story how the Ho-Chunk came to have the Ho-Chunk cording flute. Wopila Pilamaye, I want to say thank you very much to Bill Quackenbush for what he did on behalf of the Ho-Chunk Nation and the students of our school, and telling the stories about Dejob, which is the 4 lakes, now known as Madison. And we learned some words today, Kunu, which is again the firstborn son. And we talked about the Chapotake, which is our dwelling that we live in. And Maona, who is our creator. And Choka, which is our grandfather. And Gonge, which is grandson. And Ho-Chungla, again, for our Ho-Chunk people. And this is the picture of the great white deer. When the Ho-Chunk people first received the gift of knowledge regarding the cording flute, it soon became a powerful resource for our young men. And it was to solicit love and courtship and friendship within our people. Courtship amongst us has always been more of a social process. And in the olden days, and what we practice today is our upper clan, Thunder Clan, Warrior Clan, Sky Clan. We don't marry amongst our own clans. We go down and we marry our Water Clan or our Earth Clan. Could be Snake Clan, Deer Clan, Bear Clan, Elk Clan. So we practice that tradition today. So you'll never see any double bears. There won't be any baby bears. So again, that is the story of our cording flute. And I have one more story to share with you. Shunk Jara Nup Iwi, which means two wolves. And I want to present this. This is a healing herb that we have. It's a sage. And we believe that this sage here, you just go like this, rub it between your hands, and bless yourself. And it helps your mind, it helps your body, it helps interrelationship amongst two people, two nations, two clans. And so this is something that we do for ourselves in the mornings. And I'm going to present this to your teacher, to your professor, to your leader, and presenting it in a good way that she continues to have a clear mind, good heart, and a healthy body. So I present this again to you.
A sincere thank you.
And then I'm going to share this story, and I'm going to leave it with you. And it has a technology that you can use and share it amongst yourselves. This story is told by an elderly gentleman that is long gone now, and he was an actor once upon a time. And so if you hear the technology, you'll hear his voice. And the setting is amongst a choka once again, and a gunge, his grandson. His grandson brings him tobacco. He brings him some jurara, some money, and to use in a good way. He could bring him fabric, he could bring him a hide, he could bring him, anytime you want to talk to a choka or a gaga, a grandmother or a grandpa, you always bring them something. It could be tobacco, it could be maple syrup, it could be a hide, it could be wood, or they could come to their homes and chop wood for them. Because that fire is what gives them life and keeps them warm every single day. So this story here, this is about two wolves. And again, if you was to tell this story in Ho Chunk, it would take a lot longer, but we're speaking in a language that we both understand, that was taught to us. One evening, a Ho Chunk elder told his grandson about a battle that goes on inside people. And even today, this continues on. He said, "My grandson, Gunge, the battle is between two wolves. Shulk ja cha nup iwi, two wolves inside us all. One is evil. It is called anger. It could be called envy or jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego, and one that is the evilest of all, which I call discouragement. The other is good. It is joy. It is peace. It is what I'm wearing today, wochete, which there's no word for love, but it's a caring for one another. We've established a relationship today. Our lives will never be the same. We have made a friendship here today, and that's not love, but it's caring for each other, one another. And it's good. There's other words for it: hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, or what I hear that word a lot today called faith. the grandson thought about it for a minute, and as they sat in front of the fire and poked the fire and sipped their tea, he asked his grandfather as he thought about it. He said, Chocha, Shunk Chara, Nunk Iwini, the two wolves, which wolf wins? And Huchongara Hije Eja, Teher Ejega. He said the grandfather simply replied, Hijawa Unk Horak U Rajaga, the one you feed. So at this time I want to say, Weniganapshana, Pinadigiwi, thank you for inviting me here to share this moment with you. And I wish you peace and well-briety and safety during this time of the pandemic, what's happening. And I'm sorry that we have to wear masks and that we can't shake hands and embrace, but know that I send my love and peace and kindness and good thoughts on to you all as a 67-year-old Deer Clan member of the Ho-Chunk-La Nation. Wopila Pilamanai. Thank you.
Thank you. On the back side of this camera, this is Amber Garvey, and I just have to extend a heartfelt thanks to Jean Stacy for coming to UW Stevens Point this morning to share her stories. And if it's not coming through on the screen, her heart that is so full of joy. She has chosen the joy wolf, and I will be carrying that forward today. Thank you.